How dare my brother walk in a MY house, declare himself retired at 25, and expect me to bankroll his life? I was standing in my kitchen, still in my scrubs from a 14-hour shift to the hospital, when I heard the key turn in my front door. The key I'd given Ryan 2 years ago for emergencies. Actual emergencies, like if my house was on fire or I'd lock myself out. Not for whatever this was. My younger brother Ryan pushed through the door backwards, dragging 2 large cardboard boxes. Behind him came more boxes, a duffel bag, and what looked like his entire gaming setup still partially assembled. He kicked the door shut with his foot and dropped everything in the middle of my living room with a heavy thud that made my coffee table shake. "Hey sis," he said, not even looking at me. "I'm home. Home. My home. The home I'd saved for 7 years to buy. The home where I'd painted every wall myself, refinished the hardwood floors on my hands and knees, and worked double shifts to afford." "Ryan, what are you doing?" I asked, setting down my mug of tea that I'd been desperately needing for the past 3 hours. He straightened up and stretched his arms over his head like he'd just completed some major accomplishment. "Moving in. I'm done with that corporate grind, you know? I put my time. 2 whole years of waking up early, dealing with traffic, sitting in meetings. I'm retired now." I stared at him. Retired at 25, after 2 years as a junior marketing associate. "You can't just retire at 25, Ryan. That's not how life works." He waved his hand dismissively and walked into my kitchen, opening my fridge like he'd been living here for months. "Sure you can. I've been reading about it online. There's this whole movement of people who reject the 9-to-5 trap. Besides, you've got this big house all to yourself. Made sense to move in with family." He pulled out my leftover Thai food, the dinner I'd been looking forward to all day. "What time do you usually make dinner? I'm thinking we could do like a meal schedule or something." My exhaustion was quickly being replaced by something sharper. "Ryan, we need to talk about this. You can't just move in without asking." He was already heating up my food in the microwave. "My food? Come on, don't be like that. We're family. Mom and Dad would have wanted us to look out for each other, share what we have. You've got all this space, and you're making good money at the hospital. I just need some time to figure out my next move, heal from the burnout, you know." I wanted to laugh. Heal from burnout after 2 years of entry-level work. Meanwhile, I just finished my second consecutive shift covering for sick colleagues, had dealt with 3 emergency cases, and still had to come home and do laundry because I was out of clean scrubs. But I was too tired to fight, too tired to explain basic adult responsibilities to my brother, who'd apparently decided that life was optional. "We'll talk about this tomorrow," I said. "I need to sleep." Cool, he said, now eating my pad thai straight from the container. "Which room should I take?" "The one upstairs with the big windows." That was my guest room. The room I'd carefully furnished for when my best friend from medical school visited. The room with the comfortable mattress I'd saved up for and the blackout curtains I'd install myself. "Fine," I said. "Take that one." I went to my bedroom and closed the door, listening to Ryan rummage through my kitchen, opening and closing cabinets. I sat on my bed and felt the weight of the day, the week, the year pressing down on me. And now this. Our parents had died 18 months ago. Car accident, sudden and devastating. In their will, they'd left the house to both of us, but Ryan had immediately wanted to sell. I bought out his half, taking on a larger mortgage, but keeping the home I'd grown up in. They'd also left some savings. Ryan got $30,000 in their car, a nice sedan that was only 3 years old. I got their medical bills, funeral expenses, and the responsibility of sorting through decades of their belongings. I'd paid nearly $40,000 out of pocket for everything Ryan didn't want to deal with. He'd taken his inheritance and bought a new wardrobe, went on a trip to Vegas, and got himself some expensive tech. Now that money was apparently gone, and he decided his backup plan was me. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of gunfire and explosions. Video game sounds coming from my living room at full volume. It was 6 in the morning. I had the day off, my first in 9 days, and I'd planned to sleep until at least 8. I walked out to find Ryan sprawled across my couch, controller in hand, energy drink cans already accumulating on my coffee table. He was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. "Ryan, it's 6 in the morning." "Oh yeah, sorry," he said, not turning around or lowering the volume. "I'm on Tokyo time right now, gaming with some guys from Japan. They're hilarious. You need to turn that down. And we need to talk about your plans. Latte, cease. I'm in the middle of a raid." Later never came. Ryan gamed until 4 in the morning, slept until noon, and spent his afternoons eating everything in my refrigerator and leaving dishes everywhere. He took over my living room completely. His gaming setup now permanently installed, his clothes draped over my furniture, his shoes kicked off in the middle of the floor. By the end of the first week, my grocery bill had doubled. Ryan didn't eat normal portions. He'd go through a box of cereal in one sitting, eat an entire pizza I'd brought home for 2 meals, finish a gallon of milk in a day. When I mentioned maybe he could chip in for groceries, he looked at me like I'd suggested something outrageous. I'm not working right now, remember? I am healing. Besides, you make good money. What's a few extra groceries? A few extra groceries. He'd gone through $200 worth of food in 7 days. Ryan, you need to get a job. You can't just live here indefinitely without contributing. He sighed dramatically, pausing his game. You're being really negative right now. I'm going through a transition period. I'm exploring my options, thinking about what I really want to do with my life. You can't put a timeline on personal growth. Personal growth. He'd left his bedroom exactly twice in 3 days, both times to get food. Week 2, Ryan started redecorating. I came home from a particularly brutal shift to find he'd rearranged my living room furniture. My grandmother's antique side table was shoved in a corner. My bookshelf was moved to block the window because the light was hitting his screen wrong. Looks better, right? He said. More optimized for the space. Optimized for his gaming setup. He meant, Ryan, that's my grandmother's table. It needs to be somewhere I can see it. It's just furniture, sis. Don't be so attached to material things. That's part of my new philosophy. Actually, minimalism. Letting go of stuff that doesn't serve you. This from the man who just ordered 3 new gaming chairs to test which one had the best lumbar support. Week 3, the party started. I work a night shift and come home to find my house full of strangers. Ryan's friends from his old job, people he'd met online, random acquaintances who'd heard about the chill house with no rules. They'd be drinking my alcohol, eating my food, leaving trash everywhere. You don't mind, right? Ryan said the first time, not actually asking. It's just a few people. 15 people. 15 strangers in my home at 2 in the morning on a Wednesday. I started staying late at the hospital, picking up extra shifts, anything to avoid going home. My sanctuary had become a place I dreaded. My coworkers noticed. You okay? My friend Jennifer asked. You seem stressed. Stress didn't begin to cover it. But what could I say? That my adult brother had moved in without permission and was treating my home like a free hotel? It sounded absurd even in my own head. Week 4, Ryan bought a motorcycle. A loud, expensive motorcycle that he parked in my driveway, taking up the space where I usually park. Now I had to park on the street. Where did you get the money for that? I asked. Credit card, he said proudly. 0% interest for 12 months. I'll figure out the payments later. Isn't she beautiful? She was a liability. He had no motorcycle license, no proper insurance, and no way to make the payments he'd just committed to. Ryan, you can't afford that. That's poverty mindset talking, he said, using a term he'd clearly picked up from some internet guru. You have to invest in yourself, take risks. That's how you grow wealth. He had no wealth. He had my house, my food, and a growing pile of debt. But here's what Ryan didn't know. What nobody knew except my boss and the human resources department at the hospital. 8 months ago, I'd applied for a position with Doctors Without Borders. It was something I'd dreamed about since medical school, a chance to use my skills where they were desperately needed, to challenge myself in ways that working in a comfortable American hospital never would. The application process was rigorous. Interviews, background checks, medical evaluations, psychological assessments. They needed to know I could handle the stress, the conditions, the isolation. I'd spent months preparing, gathering recommendations, proving myself. 6 months ago, I'd been accepted. 2 years in Guatemala, working in rural clinics, providing care to communities with almost no medical infrastructure. It was everything I'd worked toward. I told no one. Not my coworkers, not my friends, not Ryan. I wanted to get everything arranged first, make sure it was really happening before I shared the news. I'd spent the last 6 months preparing. I found a rental agency that specialized in medical professionals going abroad. They'd vetted potential renters carefully, running background checks and verifying employment. The family they'd found was perfect. A couple, both teachers with 2 young kids. They needed a place for exactly 2 years while they were on a special assignment at a local private school. The rent they'd agreed to pay was triple my mortgage. Triple. For 2 years, my house would not only be covered, but would be generating significant income. They'd wired the first year up front, money that was sitting in my account right now, money I was planning to use for medical supplies and donations to the clinics I'd be working at. The rental family was supposed to move in 8 weeks from the day Ryan had showed up. Now it was down to 6 weeks. I planned to tell Ryan at week 4, give him 2 weeks to find a place. That seemed reasonable, generous even. But as I watched him settle deeper into my house, treating it more like his property every day, something shifted in my thinking. Ryan had texted me the day he'd moved in. I'd been at work, couldn't talk, and he'd sent a long message about needing to stay with me for a while. I'd responded quickly, thinking he meant a few days, maybe a week. I'd type, house available for 6 weeks max. We'll talk details when I get home. He'd responded with a thumbs up emoji. At the time, I'd meant it as a conversation starter, something we'd discuss properly. But Ryan had never wanted to discuss anything. He'd moved in completely, made himself at home, and acted like my boundaries were suggestions. So I decided to let him continue thinking that. 6 weeks max. He'd agreed, technically. Week 5, Ryan started giving people tours of his place. I overheard him on a video call with some friends. "Yeah man, I've got this great house now. 3 bedrooms, nice neighborhood. You should come visit. I'm thinking about getting a hot tub for the back deck." My back deck, my house. And he was planning renovations. That night, I asked him about his job search. Job search. He laughed. "I told you, I'm retired. I'm focusing on personal projects right now. Actually, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Or maybe a YouTube channel about minimalist living and financial freedom." Financial freedom. While living rent-free in my house and eating my food. "You know the arrangement is temporary, right Ryan?" Sure, he said, eyes on a screen. "Once I get my projects off the ground, I'll probably get my own place. Somewhere bigger. Maybe I'll buy instead of rent. Build some equity." He had no concept of reality. None. And I realized that no conversation, no reasonable discussion was going to change that. Ryan had constructed a fantasy world where he was a successful retired entrepreneur, and my house was just the launching pad for his imaginary empire. Week 6 arrived. I'd packed everything I needed for Guatemala into 3 large suitcases and 2 boxes that I'd already shipped ahead. My room was nearly empty, though Ryan hadn't noticed. He never came into my room, too busy in his own world. I'd confirmed everything with the rental family. They'd arrive at 10 in the morning with their moving truck. I'd given them keys the week before when we'd met for coffee to go over house details. They were lovely people, excited about the neighborhood, grateful for the opportunity. My flight to Guatemala was at 6 the next morning. I'd be gone before Ryan even woke up. The night before, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but from anticipation. I kept thinking about the work I'd be doing, the people I'd help, the experience I'd gain. This was what I'd worked toward my entire career. At 9:45, I heard the truck pull up outside. I was already downstairs, my last suitcase by the door. Ryan was still asleep, as usual. His door was closed, and I could hear him snoring. The doorbell rang at exactly 10. I opened it to find Sarah and Mark, the rental couple with their 2 kids. The moving truck was idling in the driveway. Professional movers already unloading boxes. "Welcome," I said, stepping aside. They came in with the excitement of a family starting a new chapter. The kids immediately ran to look at the backyard. Sarah smiled at the kitchen. "It's even lovelier than I remembered." The movers started bringing in furniture. A couch, beds, boxes labeled kitchen, and books and toys. They were efficient and professional, moving through my living room, where Ryan's gaming setup still dominated the space. It took about 15 minutes before Ryan's door opened. He stumbled out in his boxers and a stained t-shirt, hair sticking up, eyes barely open. He stopped dead when he saw strangers in the house. "What's going on?" he mumbled. "Good morning, Ryan," I said calmly. "This is Sarah and Mark. They're moving in today." He blinked, trying to process. "Moving in? What are you talking about?" Sarah and Mark looked uncomfortable, sensing the tension. I'd warned them there might be an overlap, that my brother was staying temporarily, but would be leaving today. "Ryan, I told you 6 weeks. This is week 6. They're renting the house for the next 2 years." His face went from confused to pale to red. "You can't just kick me out. I live here." "No, you've been staying here temporarily. As we discussed, we never discussed this." His voice was rising, and I saw the kids look over nervously. I pulled out my phone and showed him the text from his first day. "House available for 6 weeks max." His thumbs up response right below it. He stared at the screen. "That's not. I didn't think you meant. You can't do this. Ryan, you need to pack your things. These people have a lease. They've paid rent. This is their home now. Where am I supposed to go?" It was the first time he'd asked a practical question in 6 weeks. The first time reality had actually penetrated his fantasy. "You're 25 years old with a college degree. You'll figure it out, like the rest of us do." He looked around at the movers, at Sarah and Mark, at his gaming setup that suddenly looked ridiculous surrounded by boxes of someone else's life. "This is insane. You're my sister. Family doesn't do this to family. Family doesn't take advantage of family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't move in without asking, eat someone else's food, throw parties in someone else's home, and contribute nothing. You had 6 weeks of free housing, Ryan. That's more than fair. I need more time. You've had 2 years since mom and dad died to get your life together. You got $30,000 in a car. I got bills and responsibilities. You don't need more time. You need to grow up." He stood there, and for a moment I thought he might cry, or yell, or do something dramatic. But instead, he just looked defeated, small, like reality was finally breaking through. "I need to pack," he said quietly. "You have until this evening. I'll be gone by then, but Sarah and Mark will be here." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "Where are you going?" "Guatemala. Doctors Without Borders. 2 years. I leave tomorrow morning." "You're leaving the country?" "Yes. For 2 years. Yes, he processed this, and I could see him try to recalculate, looking for an angle. So after 2 years, when you come back, the lease is for 2 years, Ryan. After that, we'll see. But you need to build your own life, not wait around for mine. I left him standing there and went to help Sarah find the right box for her kitchen supplies. Behind me, I heard Ryan's door close. He packed in silence. I watched him disassemble his gaming setup, pack his clothes, load his boxes. He made 3 trips to his car, the sedan he'd inherited from our parents. He didn't ask for help, and I didn't offer. At 6 that evening, he was done. He stood in the doorway with his last bag, looking around the house one more time. I got a job, he said suddenly. Call my old boss. He said I could come back, different department. I start Monday. That's good, Ryan. Really. Found a room to rent, month to month. It's not great, but it's something. That's very adult of you. He flinched at that. You think I'm a loser. I think you're lost, but you can find your way. You just have to actually try. He nodded slowly. Guatemala. That's pretty cool. Mom would have been proud. That hit harder than I expected. Yeah, she would have. Dad would have told you to take pictures. I will. We stood there for a moment, and it felt like we were actually seeing each other for the first time in years. Not as the roles we'd played, the responsible sister and the irresponsible brother, but as 2 people trying to figure out life after losing the people who'd raised us. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. I was being selfish. Yes, you were. I was scared. After Mom and Dad, after quitting my job, I didn't know what to do, and your house felt safe. Being scared is okay. Taking advantage isn't. I know that now. He picked up his bag. Good luck in Guatemala. Good luck with the job. He walked to his car, loaded the last bag, and drove away. I watched until his taillights disappeared around the corner. Sarah came up beside me. You okay? Yeah, I said. I really am. That night, I had dinner with Sarah, Mark, and their kids. We ordered pizza and sat in my kitchen, their kitchen now, and they told me about their excitement for the school year, their plans for the neighborhood, their hopes for their kids. It felt right, this house being filled with a family again. At 4 the next morning, my alarm went off. I took one last look around my empty bedroom, grabbed my suitcase, and called a cab to the airport. The flight to Guatemala was long, with a layover in Houston. I slept most of the way, the kind of deep sleep I hadn't had in months. When I woke up, we were descending into Guatemala City, and I could see mountains and valleys and a country I'd only read about. The work was harder than I'd imagined and more rewarding than I dreamed. I worked in 3 different clinics over those 2 years, treating everything from basic infections to complicated births to machete wounds. I learned Spanish, then picked up some kitsch from the Mayan communities. I delivered babies, set bones, held hands of people taking their last breaths. I also kept in touch with Ryan. Email, mostly occasional video calls when the internet was working. He stayed at the job, got promoted after 8 months, moved into a better apartment, started dating someone, sent me pictures of the motorcycle he'd sold and the sensible used car he'd bought instead. Growing up is weird, he wrote once. Turns out it's hard, but also kind of satisfying. Who knew? Sarah sent me updates on the house. They took excellent care of it, better than I had. Fixed things I'd been meaning to fix, planted a garden in the backyard, became friends with the neighbors. They asked if they could extend their lease when the 2 years were up. I said yes. I've been offered another year in Guatemala, then possibly a position in South Sudan. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like something I'd moved beyond. When I finally came back to the States for a visit after 3 years, Ryan picked me up from the airport. He looked different, older, more settled. He'd grown a beard and cut his hair shorter. He wore actual adult clothes, not gaming t-shirts. We drove past the house. Sarah's garden was in full bloom. Kids' bikes were on the front lawn. It looked happy. You ever regret it? Ryan asked, renting it out, leaving. Not once, I said. You regret being a complete disaster? Yeah, pretty much daily. But I'm glad you didn't let me stay a disaster. You did the work, Ryan. I just gave you a deadline. He laughed. The world's most aggressive deadline. We had dinner that night, just the 2 of us. We talked about Mom and Dad. Finally, really talked about missing them, about how their death had broken something in both of us, how we'd handled it differently, how we were both still figuring it out. You saved my life, he said over dessert. Kicking me out. I was drowning and didn't even know it. You saved your own life. You got the job, found the apartment, did the work. Because I had to. Because you made me have to. Sometimes that's what love looks like, I said. Not letting someone destroy themselves just because it's easier than confronting them. He raised his glass. To tough love in Guatemala and growing the hell up. I clinked my glass against his. To second chances and knowing when to let go. Looking back now, 5 years later, I can see how that 6-week deadline changed both our lives. Ryan has a career he actually cares about, a serious girlfriend, an apartment he's proud of. He's talking about buying a house, doing it right this time. And me? I'm still with Doctors Without Borders, currently in South Sudan, doing work that matters in ways I never imagined. The house sold last year. Sarah and Mark bought it, gave me a fair price, and I used the money to fund a new clinic in a refugee refugee camp. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable them. Sometimes love means setting a boundary and holding it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ryan texts me every week now. Updates about his life, questions about mine. Last week, he sent me a picture of a ring. He's planning to propose to his girlfriend next month. Think you can get leave to come to the wedding? He asked. I'll be there, I promise. Because that's what family does. We show up for each other, not by carrying each other's weight, but by believing in each other enough to let each other stand on their own. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more real-life tales of boundaries, growth, and a complicated love between siblings.